Tonight, Cromwell's compensation cake is divided amid concern. Buses are about to make a comeback in Dunedin. And the Flyers all steamed up over a bit of digging. Good evening. We'll also be having a look back at the week's snow. But first, shock and disappointment greeted today's long-awaited announcement of the Clyde Dam amenity grants. While some community groups are pleased with their allocation, others are angry about who's missed out. Michael Lynch reports.
The long process of whittling down the hundreds of applications for amenity grant money is over, and already there are cries of prejudice. Sports clubs in Cromwell, Clyde and Alex have scored heavily from the reduced figure of $2.5 million doled out by Electrocorp. For instance, the Clyde Bowling Club has $290,000 for an indoor rink, the Cromwell Club $114,000. The Lake Dunstan Yacht Club gets $200,000, Cromwell and Alex get a big grant to upgrade their town halls, and the Alex Rowing Club $160,000. But they're upset in Clyde. There's nothing at all of the $300,000 sought to balance the fact that dam's taken the town off the main road. And at the Cromwell Youth Learning Centre, they're spitting mad. Because of the heavy unemployment predicted among the Clyde Dam workforce, $370,000 was sought for computers for tourism training and a horticulture training workshop. The centre got nothing.
People coming off the dam will need to have these new technologies and the skills in order to be competitive in the labour market.
When you see people like bowling clubs getting the money, do you feel any rancour over this?
I'm sure there's some good reason, some justification.
There may be appeals against the funding choices.
The Dunedin City bus service may be expanded in a major turnaround of thinking by the City Council. For years, bus services have been gradually disappearing, and the Council's done little to stop the rot. But now, as Mark Price reports, the Council's thinking of all sorts of ways of getting people back on buses.
The City Council adopted a policy just last year that it would allow the bus service to gradually fade away. Without buses, ratepayers would not need to pay the $2 million plus a year in subsidies they do now. But that was last year's thinking. The new thinking is contained in this report, produced mostly by Transport Department staff who believe the bus service can be improved. And if the service improves, perhaps more people will use it. The report's convinced the Transport Committee, which includes most councillors.
I think Council is excited by the prospect. It got good support the other night at the Transport Committee meeting.
Yet only a year ago it adopted a resolution suggesting that the service should be run down.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? That all sorts of things are happening in transport all over the world, and I think it has come to a time when we have realised that the outcome of the decision we made last year is wind down, is, I don't believe, good for Dunedin, and I think other councillors believe the same thing.
So changed their minds over 12 months?
I believe so.
So what's in it? Well, there's a lot of internal reorganisation, and then there are the more conspicuous ideas like replacing some of the ageing but expensive omnibuses with midi and minibuses. This is a midi and it belongs to the hospital board. They're cheaper to buy, cheaper to run. Then there's the expansion of routes.
Our routes have tended to travel along the old tram routes, they're historical. We're looking to expand those services into the newer subdivisions on Dunedin and also introduce an element of competition, subject to the licensing authority agreeing to applications we may make in the future. We'd like to compete with other operators within the Greater Dunedin area, expand services into areas that currently have no bus service at all, and to improve on our existing services.
He also talks of perhaps privatising the service where the bottom line would be profit. Councillor Williams believes, however, that profit cannot be the bottom line.
There are all sorts of people that depend on buses. There are the young, there are the old, there are people who have no cars, there are people who cannot drive, and we have a moral responsibility to carry those people.
The report also suggests private vehicles be banned from parking in the main street, and that meters could be patrolled for longer hours. These and many more suggestions go to the next meeting of the Dunedin City Council.
Local body leaders in Otago surprised themselves and everybody else today by agreeing on a radical reorganisation plan. After years of arguments, local authority representatives agreed in principle to form themselves into just one group, a directly elected authority which would take on some of the functions of central government. Kim Hurring reports on today's meeting in Cromwell.
It started as a meeting where the joke was that there are 23 different opinions about reorganisation from each of the 23 local bodies in our region. But by lunchtime, the representatives were able to sit down and digest the consequences of a morning of consensus.
I think it's been extremely successful because we've seen all of the authorities present speaking to the agreement of one Otago region. When the meeting was first discussed, the possibility of very few people supporting that was considered, and we're very pleased to see what wide support there is for one Otago.
Does that consensus surprise you?
I think to have such immediate agreement, so people have been thinking, and I think they've been doing their homework on how important it's going to be to present a strong front.
For the Mayor of Dunedin, it's the breakthrough he's been striving for many years.
Well, it's very exciting indeed to now realise the majority are obviously united towards the future of the Otago Provincial District, and we can carry on and appoint now a working committee to achieve that objective. It's going to be very exciting for the future local government here in Otago.
You've been working towards this for something like 11 years now. How do you feel personally about it?
Well, I'm absolutely thrilled because it was my first task when elected Mayor of Dunedin to try and convince everybody that Otago should be united in its best interest of the future.
Were you surprised at the level of consensus this morning?
Yes, quite staggered, to be quite honest.
There's still a lot of opposition to the general principle of change that's been forced upon these local leaders by the Local Government Commission.
It's a communist state. It's getting worse faster. You're just being told that Kremlin's in the gun today. He doesn't like when it affects him. But if it affects us, it's quite all right. It's undemocratic. Why should outsiders tell local people what to do?
But you're not actually in favour of the one region proposal, are you?
Well, we weren't originally, but I think now that a one region is more logical now than two sub-regions in a way. From looking at it from the regional facilities angle.
Many ended the day resigned to the fact that their best way of fronting up to central government was with one unit of local government.
New motorcycle licence plates have made local motorcycle dealers irate. They're twice as big as the old ones and in some cases impossible to fit legally. The Ministry of Transport, which designed them, says it talked to the motorcycle industry and they all agreed to the change. But now dealers say the plates don't fit, they're dangerous and it's against the law to change them. Lee Davies reports.
The new reflectorised plates are double the size of the old ones. Ministry officer Richard Bean says the size of the old numbers was hopeless from an enforcement point of view. He made them bigger, by about 5 millimetres, and the plate became twice as high. The ministry accepted they'd be unsuitable for about 15% of motorcycles. This is why.
When your pillion passenger gets on, it's going to slice open their leg, or if an accident did happen, you could do some quite severe damage.
And on this type of motorcycle, the plate can't legally be mounted beneath the tail light because it won't be lit. Furthermore, the holes are in the wrong place. All problems which need to be solved.
Well, I think they really should be taken off the market. There must be stocks of the old ones available still that can be circulated around the country until a replacement is found for those ones.
The ministry says it's not its job to work out these bugs and suggests dealers find their own ways of getting around them. There's nothing wrong with the plates, it says, that a bit of Kiwi ingenuity can't fix.
I wonder if he'll get away with that. Now to the weather, and it's shaping up well for cold weather sports. There'll be skiing at Coronet Peak tomorrow. There's already ice skating and curling on Alexandra's Dunedin Dam, the earliest for 30 years. The temperatures at 3 o'clock today, Half Moon Bay was sunny with 12 degrees. Invercargill partly cloudy and 10. Gore sunny and 7. Balclutha was sunny too with 10 degrees. Dunedin fine and 11. Palmerston was sunny and the big high today of 14 degrees. Oamaru sunny and 10. Coorall was clear and 9 degrees. Ranfurly fine and 5. Queenstown fine and 2. Wanaka fine and 5. Alexandra fine and the low today recorded in Alexandra of 1 degree. Taianao sunny and 7. The expected highs for tomorrow are Dunedin 13 and Invercargill 12 degrees. The Kingston Flyer, which has been mothballed for the winter months, was stoked up this week for a special task. It's been pressed into service by Telecom to give subscribers in Kingston a better service. Peter Cruikshank with that story.
The train was in its working clothes, no fancy passenger carriages and no tourists joyriding. Just the engine, tender, shunter and a giant mole plough, followed by a truck and a digger. The team's finishing 16 kilometres of cable laying from Garston to Kingston. The shortest route is usually along the edge of a road, but here it's glacial moraine with a sea of boulders all the way, so digging the trench was out of the question. It would have taken too long and been too expensive. The cables are being buried in the ballast of the tracks, 20 centimetres away from the sleepers. It's a slow and often tricky job that has not been without a few hiccups.
We had a good day yesterday. We got 5.8 Ks in yesterday, which is the most cable I've ever laid in 4 years. We've had our problems today as we've got towards the Kingston Township. It's become a bit more stonier and a bit more rocky.
Have you done any damage?
We've had a couple of bits of damage, but the cable gangs will be busy for the next couple of days. They should be able to keep that right.
There are more than 40 subscribers in the Kingston area, all on party lines.
Service has its moments over winter, especially in snowfall like we've had in the last couple of weeks.
But that's about to change. These 2 new cables, each with 30 wires, will be connected to the Garston exchange, and each subscriber will get an individual service. But they'll have to remember one more number. The cable layer is the same that buried much of the Invercargill Dunedin optic fibre cable. But in this situation, it's had everyone scratching their heads at times. Engine driver Russell Glendenning included. Now the work's done, his flyer can go back to cold storage until the next tourist run at Queen's Birthday weekend.
Just before we pack up at the end of our first real week of winter weather, we thought we'd take a look back at some of those lovely snowy scenes, the ones that make the people up north so jealous. They've been captured on videotape by our crews over the week. Hope you enjoy it and that you have a really relaxing weekend.